everybody. Good afternoon. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Thursday afternoon. And thank you again for joining us for one of our executive pop-up webinar series. And today's discussion will have a bit of a panel discussion, and it is your leadership fails without coaching. Coaching has really been a hot topic lately, especially coming out of COVID and trying to help people have sort of a accountability partner in how they are able to navigate through these uncharted waters for all of us. So today we are going to have joining us Aretha Kitson of Kidz Ink, Kathy Gray, who is owner of Creative Critters, as well as Jim Cooper, is a certified executive coach and trainer. And let's go ahead to the agenda. And in today's agenda, we're obviously going to talk a little bit about first, using the toolbar here. And when you look at the toolbar, you'll see a Q&A, you will see polls, and you will also see chat. We ask anybody who has any questions to please put those into the Q&A because both what we do is not only do we look to there for all the questions or any question you may have, but we also look if there are questions we cannot get to during our conversation today. We look to respond to all those questions to everybody who is registered for our event. We will look at doing one poll today, so you'll see an opportunity to respond to a poll, as well as there is a chat function, and typically that's where Hans or Jen Guadioso will send out a message to you folks, or if you guys have more of a logistics question that you want to ask them behind the scene. So thank you very much, and we're going to continue on. And just to let you know, if you are registered for this, you are eligible to earn a certificate, and that is part of your registration. The information has come along with it. But again, if you have any questions, please email us, and we'll be sure to do it. We're going to go through housekeeping items, and then our introduction, and then question and answers, as well as a wrap up. So let's get started right now. First off, we are going to talk, well, a number of people have already seen this, but want to make sure that everybody is aware of something that we've rolled out and doing a lot of research, being a childcare business owner myself. 60% of childcare staff do not have any kind of healthcare benefit. And that is not because they simply are not on their spouse's plan or a significant other plan or on parents' plan. These are individuals who either will not take advantage of a major medical plan through your own company, or not going through the state shop, as they call it. So we went to task, and over the past year and a half, we've developed IC 360 ECE, Healthy Advantage, specific for the childcare industry. And it is a very affordable plan. The payments for this plan are anywhere from the very low of like $11.50 up to $90 for an entire family. And it does a lot to cover them. And there's 5 different types of programs. By the way, all the programs include a telemedicine program where there is no additional copay for that too, and full access to doctors. It's immediate use. There is no high deductibles on these programs, and it is very inexpensive, very flexible, very attractive at $15 for office visit or a specialist visit, or if you need to do lab work or x-ray, it's only about $50. And then there is a pharmaceutical medication program that is very attractive too. So we went to the mat to try to find something that was really ECE friendly. And what we mean by that is all the language is in what teachers and staff and administrators would understand and get, and make sure they connect with them, as well as the way that we engage with them. We have a benefit liaison that is part of the program, and that benefit liaison works from the enrollment time to explaining the differences between this type of program, a major medical program, this to like a telemedicine program, or voluntary programs that also come with it, and also the fact that we're obviously believe we're a trusted partner with our members, and this is for our membership. This is the only program that we actually do have extended to non-members too at a different price point. And we see that it's very knowledgeable, that we're able to answer the questions about the childcare side of this, as well as not only the insurance. So how it connects with teachers, what are the risks, what are the opportunities, and things of that nature. The second element is for all of our members, again, is a free financial success assessment. many times people do a great job of filling up their centers. And I know coming back from what we've had with the lockdown has been really challenging. But in addition to it being challenging, is that now that the centers are starting to fill back up and your school age programs are going a little crazy because not everybody's sure what they're going to do. But as dollars come in, leveraging the dollars best to your ability. And as I like to say in our business, we're really about putting the oxygen mask on first for the owner. That means that you should be able to pay yourself first. It's about getting to a very strong EBIT, very strong margin. And we have financial support to do that. First, we have a free assessment. And then if that is of interest for you, is services and a team that many of you have met through our PPP discussions, and they have come on board to be very helpful to a number of our members. So if you're interested in that assessment, please do not hesitate to reach out to Jen, and she will be sure to get you connected. So with no further ado, let's go ahead, and we want to get introductions to Aretha, to Kathy, and then to Jim. But what we're going to first do is do an interview with each one of them. And so let's first start with Aretha. Aretha, if you want to start coming on. Aretha is the owners of Kidz Ink. I saw her there for a second. She popped down, but now she disappeared. I'm sure she'll be on in a second again. There she is. She is located in Delaware. She has 5 locations, ever-growing locations, and I know that building new locations is a talent that Aretha really has, and has been a member with us for a little while now. But good afternoon, Aretha. How are you?
Good. How are you, Tony? Thanks.
Oh, I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, no.
Let's see. Oh, I know why. We got you now. How you
Can you hear
doing?
me now?
I can hear you now perfectly.
All right. Awesome. I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for joining us. You know, like everything else, and one of the things with IC360, Aretha, it's not about what we think or what I think. It's really about what our owners, what our operators think, and what their experiences are. And that's why I wanted to have you on here and to ask you a couple questions, if that was okay with you. And I assume so, because you joined us today.
Yeah. Thanks.
So yeah, tell us a little bit. Today we're talking about coaching, but before we get started, just tell us a little bit about your centers, where'd you start from and how you got to where you are.
Okay. Started about 23 years ago. So I've been doing this for a long time. Just looking for care for my children. Couldn't find what I was looking for. So I first started at my house. Then I moved to a old restaurant that was closed, converted the restaurant into a childcare center. Fast forward to today, I now have 5 centers, and soon we'll be opening my 6th in about 2 to 3 weeks. So
wow, congratulations on the 6th one.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you, how many centers in total do you want to get to?
My goal is 20.
That's fantastic. I sort of knew that. That was sort of a seeded question there. I know that you have a very strong desire to grow, and I couldn't be happier for you. So in the middle of coming out of this lockdown, opening a center is fantastic. And that challenge and that risk of pushing your chips in, but for the reward for it, for both your, not only for you and your staff, but also for the kids, is just great. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So tell us a little bit, I had you on because of, having an experience with coaching. When we reached out to a number of our members, you're one of the people who said, yeah, I actually have had some experience with coaching. If you could tell us a little about any coaching that you received, as well as mentoring, and why you sought it. What was it important for you for being a coachee?
About 3 years ago, I was at this place where I felt stuck. I used to have this Volkswagen, and it was a stick shift, and I couldn't even drive it home. I had to get my brother to drive it home because I could not get it out of gear. And about 3 years ago, that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was back in that Volkswagen trying to get unstuck. So that's when I decided to seek out coaching. When you're in this type of business and you're in it for so many years, there's issues with staffing, parents, you go through a wide range of things can happen. So at that point, 3 years ago, we had this major lawsuit and I just did not know where to turn. So I looked to coaching, and I've worked with a couple of coaches for off and on for the past 3 years. And it probably was the best thing that happened for me.
Really? So what was it about the coaching or the different coaches that helped you get unstuck, allowed you to shift into third gear?
Basically, they helped me gain clarity. And that's what I really, really needed. I needed clarity. I needed to set some goals and make sure I stayed accountable to those goals. And also at that time, I felt like I was on like a deserted island. So I felt like, okay, finally I have somebody that knows what I'm talking about, or, you know, can listen to me and understand and help me get out of where I am right now and to get back focused and get back on track.
Well, you know, and I appreciate you saying that because, you know, I own and operate my own centers, and, you know, my either spouse, significant other, when I've had issues, even though they've been there for me as moral support, they just, don't get me wrong, because, you know, there's great husband and wife teams, you know, teams with partners, all those things. But sometimes they just don't understand where you're coming from or the challenges you're dealing with. I'm not sure, do you experience something of that nature? And I had a chance to meet your husband, so I'm not throwing him under the bus by any means. He's a great guy. You have my butt.
Yeah, but he doesn't believe me. Yeah, he handles a totally different part of the business. So I definitely felt like I was like just on this island by myself, you know, waving a white flag like I give. And when you're with a coach, it really helps, because this business in itself, we deal with so much risk with, you know, these little babies. And so there's a lot of pressure on us. You know, there's a lot of pressure, and you don't really have too many people who do know how you feel, who you can talk to when you're dealing with this. And a coach it really helps.
Wonderful. You know, when you're talking with the coach, if you don't mind, you know, you talked about one element of it, but what are typically the kind of things that you share with a coach, and what are the kind of things that you're hoping to get out of that coaching engagement?
The things that I more so at focusing on, of course, your team, because you also have to focus on your team as well as making sure you're accountable, but learning how to build the culture of your team, you know, to have a strong team culture foundation. Before I was working with the coach, I would have my director meetings, my leadership meetings, maybe once a month, sometimes quarterly. But then after I started working with the coach, we went to 2 times a week.
Wow.
So that communication, you learn to have a better communication with your staff. And I think that as well helped. Being able to communicate with your staff better, you learn so much with the coach.
Right. What did you learn about yourself, though?
Oh, yeah. I learned that just to be a stronger person.
Okay.
As I said, like to gain clarity, to have camaraderie with somebody who, because my coach was he was in this industry as well, so he understood, you know, and that makes a big difference if you have somebody that's in the industry and you can talk to, who understands exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, that makes an awful lot of sense, you know, for a very good reason. Is I think a lot of people on here are mainly from this industry, and they get it, they understand that. So I guess my last question for you before we move over to Kathy is, you know, someday do you aspire to mentor others or coach?
Oh yeah, I would love to. I've learned that even when I talk to some of my leadership team is, you know, lead by asking questions. So I would love to work with people and, you know, and to ask them questions, help them find clarity, help them find, you know, where they want to take their business in a year or 5 years or 10 years.
Wonderful. Well, that's great, Aretha, because I do believe it is one of those things too that if you demonstrate success, like you're obviously showing success, also being able to give back, I think is a
Right.
big thing. And
Absolutely.
obviously you're a very generous person, so I can see that in giving back. And I became an executive coach myself years ago, but I still seek out coaching myself. So I want to thank you for coming on. And Kathy, if you
Well,
want to
thank
come
you.
on. But
Thanks.
Aretha, thanks so much for spending some time
Thank
with us.
you.
Look at that. And there's Kathy. How are you? You're on mute, Kathy. But oh, I think that might have been, there you
Hi.
go. Perfect. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Notice that you're in the classroom. What's going on there?
I am in the classroom. I've been in the classroom all week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but that's okay because I love being in the classroom.
Of course, yeah. That's awesome. Well, I think we all know at this time of the year, we actually were thinking about, having this session, and we had to push it off a couple weeks just simply because of, kids going back to school. And honestly, here in Western New York, actually today's the first school for kindergartners. So it is a big time. And so let me move over to Kathy so I could do a formal introduction for Kathy here. And she is the owner of Creative Critters, located down in Virginia with 5 locations too, and a member with us for a good while. And of those 5 locations, didn't one of those recently open?
Yep, we opened our 5th location June 1st during COVID.
Congratulations.
I know display that did that, but it is what it is. It was
Well, cut from a similar cloth as Aretha, though, Kathy, because look at you both now at 5 locations. She's opening out her 6th one in about a month, and you just opened another one right at the conclusion of the lockdown. So, by the way, before we get started with the coaching, that obviously has to be sort of, you had this probably in plans before March and any of the lockdowns, I would assume. And how did you deal with that?
It was a little bit more challenging because of COVID. I think, opening a new center has its challenges in itself. But we had that had been in the works for about a year. We took over a center, which we've never done. We've always opened our own. So I think the biggest challenge was obviously when we took over what we had negotiated as far as buying their client list. That client list kind of went out the window because that center lost a lot of children during COVID. So we basically lost all our clients and had to rebuild. They never closed, but they were open on a Friday, and then they closed on a Friday. We opened on a Monday with minimal children, but we also kept a lot of their staff. So we specifically at that location, we really had to pump up the support for the staff because we didn't want to lose them, because we knew we would be able to gain back clients. So as of today, that center is full with 100 children.
Wow. Huge.
Yeah.
Just huge. Think about it. And when did you open it again?
June 1st.
June 1st. And it's 100. We're not even talking 90 days. We're at 90 days right now, and you are at 100 kids. That's just huge. Congratulations, Kathy. But I've learned a lot from you already too. So I continue to learn from you also.
It's my team too. It's a group.
There you go.
Definitely a group.
And thank you again for joining us. And so we will jump into a little bit too. And you joined us a little bit and told us a little bit about your business. Tell us a little bit about your experience of coaching, because I know when we talked about it and Jen reached out, you said, yeah, I'd be happy to talk about my experience with coaching.
So when I met my coach, it's actually, I think it's the same coach as Aretha's. It was Brian Dupree. I was pretty much done. I wanted out. I had just recovered. One of my centers had a fire, and I lost everything, and I had rebuilt that, and I had 3 centers, I think, at the time. And I don't know really how I think I clicked on his name or something and I didn't even know who he was or what they did. But when I talked to him, I was going to go back in the classroom and be a preschool teacher. Here I am today, right now, doing that. But that was my plan. I was going to work part-time and then do the business end of it in the afternoons. And I met him, and we talked for a long time. And I spent the next 2 years with him. And my goal really with him was I needed him to teach me, one, how to work on my business and not in it, although I like to be in it. So, coaching has many different, you get the philosophy, he asks the questions, but you really have to take the information and do with it what you need it to do. But for that coaching experience, it was all about creating my corporation, how to set it up for growth, all the business end of it. He was so good at it. He was awesome. I wouldn't be here today without him. But then once I got to that point, my vision and mission started to change a little bit. I had the business under control. I was a teacher prior to, so I had the educational part, but there was a piece missing for me, and it was really the people in my business.
Mhm.
So I went to another coach, who I'm still with now, and she's really teaching me how to be a leader, how to really dig deep inside myself and be able to facilitate my why, my vision for my centers. So part of that is I'm really inspired to lead women to support each other to be the best versions of themselves every day. So I'm really looking at my business part is really working, but now I'm digging deep into my soul with her and into the souls of my staff to really pull out the best of ourselves, because sometimes as owners, we get bogged down. We don't realize that we're people. And so now I'm learning how to lead people. So you pull into coaches for different reasons at different times in the stages of your business.
Awesome. And similar to asking Aretha, what did you learn about yourself being coached?
I've learned a lot about myself. From my first coaching experience, I've probably learned to be courageous and take risks. And that coach really built my confidence. If you would have seen me back then, I was a different person. And now my coach now is really digging into my soul and really bringing out probably the person that I've always aspired to be. And I believe that is making me or helping me to be a better leader.
Well, that's great. Let me ask you this. I know when you're talking about digging deep into your soul, and when I went through coaching myself, I was sometimes my own worst enemy because I like to rush to the end. I like to get to the answer quicker. How about yourself? Or do you have the patience for receiving coaching, or do you have the entrepreneurial bug of I want to get to the answers?
I think I definitely have slowed down and realized that things take time, and not everybody thinks the way that I do, and not everybody has the drive that I do. Their drive might be different, but it doesn't mean that the end result won't come. It may take a little bit longer. And I have to remind myself, especially during this time of COVID, where everything is so crazy and so different, she really grounds me. She makes sure that I understand that the outcome is always going to be the outcome, right? It's going to happen. It's just not going to happen the way that Kathy Gray wants it to happen, and in the time frame that Kathy Gray wants it to happen. So that has definitely been a lesson for me, and it has changed me as a person.
Wow, that's absolutely wonderful. And like I asked Aretha too, do you aspire at any point in time to give back, to mentor, coach, train?
Yes, because I think that's part of my why now. So right now I'm learning to be a coach for my staff, specifically my directors. So that's kind of what my coach does for me. She's kind of teaching me how to coach my directors, who in turn then will coach our staff, right? So it's a little domino effect. But because my vision and my mission, my why, is to empower others to be the best versions of themselves. As I learn, I think I might be ready eventually, pretty soon, to be able to give back what I've learned from so many awesome people in my life. And Tony, yes, you too. You have inspired me. You've mentored me. I've talked to Jim. He's awesome. So there's so many different people in your life that become your coaches. You don't even realize. And a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with my coach, and she talked about, surrounding yourself with people that allow you to be better. And I think coaches do that. I think groups like Inspire 360 do that, because we get to talk to each other and learn from each other. So even though maybe we're not officially on a Zoom being a coach, we're coaching every single day each other.
Yeah, and I think you just put it really well, there is that tribal knowledge that sits between a lot of us owners who've gone, and operators too, who've gone through the days, the harrowing days, the dry heave days, where you're just like, I don't know if I can make it anymore. And to the other days where you just need it, and you look at your friend base, you look at your spouse, you look at others, and you're like, you know what, I can talk to them and they're going to be there for me, but it's not like having someone who is going to explore and really help me get to where I need to. So Kathy, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon already. So I really appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and, so if you would say hi to Kurt for me too.
I will. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much. And we're going to go ahead and do a poll question. So Hans, if you want to put up a poll question, and Jim, you can come on too if you want. So here's a question for everybody out there. Do you have a committed confidant with business savvy that you can share your challenges, fears, opportunities without the risk of your deep, dark secrets or your hopes and fears sort of getting out? And so it is one of those things where when you think about coaching is really an element of having someone who is not exactly a peer, but is someone that you can count on to help you be accountable. So Jim, if you would like to join us and pop on the screen, we will be ending the poll in just a moment here.
And I'm with you. You should see me now and hear me now.
I hear you. I do not see you. So Hans, maybe you can help us out with getting Jim on. Oh, there you are. You're behind the poll.
Aha.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And here are the results. Can you see them here, Jim?
I can't yet.
Okay. So let me show
Oh,
you.
here we go. Okay. I have them now.
All right. And so do you have a committed confidant? We have 29% say always, which is great. Sometimes we have a number of them who only if they're seeking someone out, and there is several people who are, nope, I don't have that. What are your thoughts regarding some of the results?
Okay. It's interesting. I always try to block them into quartiles. That one way of looking at it is almost 80% have had some experience with coaches, some because they've always sought it out, some because, often or sometimes they do. On the flip side of that, only 14% really haven't. So if you look at it that way, about 85% have had some level of experience with this, varying as we go to always and so on. So I'd say the good news is there's a mix, and probably about half have a reasonably good experience or robust experience with coaching.
Great. Well, I think I've had a very good experience. And by the way, I want to say congratulations on being, you must, like we talked about prior to the call, beautiful Italian sunset or something that you have behind you, because most of us are in the middle of our business.
That's actually Asheville, North Carolina, but there are a few Italian restaurants in town, so I'm sure that's where that came from.
That's awesome. So I've known Jim now probably for 20 years plus. And for my own claim to fame, not for Jim. Jim was actually one of my coaches during my career, and he was probably the very best coach I've had. And there was a number of reasons for that, but let me introduce Jim without further ado. He has a company called Ascendant Leadership, and an internationally recognized expert in leadership consulting and executive coaching. Over 12 years, 2,500 hours of professional certified coaching and leadership consulting, over 30 years of executive leadership, small business, a lifetime of leadership. I know he had been with Hewlett Packard and several others for many years, and holds an MAT in science education with Cornell, combat qualified in an HS physics classroom. Tell me just a little bit about that before we go.
Okay, so actually I had the people person epiphany about 3 years into engineering school, but it was too soon to change my major, so I kept plodding along and I graduated as an electrical engineer. But in that epiphany, I realized that what I really was much more interested in is working with people. And at that point in my life, specifically high school aged people. So as soon as I finished the double E degree, I went back, stayed at Cornell, went back and got the master's in education. So I am a card carrying New York State school teacher.
Look at that. Imagine that. That is awesome.
But then got into the military and commercial, but always had more of a heart for the people in the developmental side than probably most of my peer group.
You know what, that is great, but I already know that because I've known you for a good while now, and the fact that developmental side comes natural to you. But, so I was looking at having a discussion with you here today. I know you've got a few slides, but I wanted to have you on. We've had Kathy on, we had Aretha on. Both of them are in the industry of childcare. That's most of our participants here are from the ECE field. And you are not from within the ECE field, but I know you've definitely been learning at a fast pace about it. But I wanted to ask you a couple questions, and I appreciate you being here. But first is what really attracted you to getting into executive coaching yourself?
Great question. So I hinted at part of it in my introduction. I think from before getting out of college, I had helping other people in some form or fashion high on my stack of values. As I went through my military and my commercial career, that stayed with me. The farther I got into the corporate world, you got into the structure of developing and, helping people grow to the next step, get promoted, be successful, all the other. And there it stayed. When I left the commercial world, I was primarily a consultant because I knew something. I knew how to do something. That was sales management. But again, the idea of helping someone figure out, Kathy said something about being the best version of themselves and understanding what really motivated them and what made them tick, not just at a surface level, but down deep. That was really intriguing. So I think as I got to understand that more, I think the attraction to coaching just continued to build.
Right. And you've become a certified trainer of coaches too. So I would say as you liked it so much, you decided to make more of yourself.
Yeah, I tried cloning myself. That didn't work well. No, it wasn't very long after I'd gotten into coaching. I mean, I'd gotten through training. I'd begun to actually earn some of my living as a coach. But it became very clear early on that coaching in its best form, coaching had to be top to bottom in an organization. I like to say everyone has a coach and everyone is a coach in very successful organizations. So that idea of not just coaching individuals on their own, goals, but helping companies and organizations create that is a coach, has a coach idea going on. Tony, this is one place where I might ask to use a slide. If you could pull up slide 12 for me.
Okay. I'm going to go right there. I'm guessing this is slide 12.
Perfect. Okay. So tightly tied with coaching, and both Kathy and Aretha mentioned it in various ways. It's the spirit of an organization, the level of engagement, to use that term. This is really key. Gallup most of you are familiar with Gallup. They're one of the leaders in defining and measuring company engagement. And they've come up with it's a survey. It's 12 questions that they now routinely use with companies. But I'm not going to read them to you, but just scan across them. And what you see here is that, Aretha said clarity. There's a lot in here about clarity in what my job is, how my job matters, how I know how well I'm doing. Are there people in my life that care about me at work, either from a friendship standpoint or maybe a supervisor or someone who cares about my development? That's key. And you'll see that cut several times here. And then, what's the team spirit? Am I the only one who cares about doing well, or is that well distributed across my team? And of course, that by itself is a sign of someone above me doing a really good job explaining why what we do is important and why it's satisfying to help it be successful. So anyway, without going into any of the 12 more questions, this is idea of a healthy, fired up, highly engaged organization is tightly tied to coaching. And that's why I wanted to use this slide in the why does coaching matter?
Well, and you and I had talked about it. So one thing that Inspire Care 360 did is we took these questions, we give credit to Gallup, and we have created a survey. So anybody who has registered or is attending this if you will want to reach out to Jen Guadioso or any of our contacts, Hans or what have you, or Julie Pelletier, we will be able to conduct this survey for your team. And it is a highly impactful survey. So we have that ready to go if you're interested in that. So Jim, for yourself, we throw the word around coaching a lot. We throw the word mentoring around. We also talk about consulting. What do you really see as the difference between the three of them?
Okay, great question. And I'm going to lean on a slide here, if you would. Would you throw 13 up for me?
You're gonna make that.
Position those terms.
So yeah, let me go right here, and there you go.
You're getting high marks on tossing me up great softballs.
So, try my best.
So, and there's a couple distinctions here. First of all, there's training. I mean, we all need to be trained. There's certain things we have to know to do our jobs. The end. And most of us spent the first 12 to 16 or so years being trained or taught. When you get into the world of business or education, whatever your profession is, consulting becomes sort of a form of teaching. A consultant is a person who knows specifically and probably very great detail how to function at some level doing something. So we hire consultants to teach us how to ride a bicycle, for instance, and you can see the little frog consultant yelling out, do this, do that, go left, go right. So consultants are more about helping you be very accomplished in solving a specific business problem. Okay. A mentor is someone who basically acts as someone who's really senior and very experienced in a particular stage of your business or where you're trying to develop. So they can pass on wisdom. Oftentimes they're older than the person or more experienced than the person they're mentoring. It's a form of teaching, but there is a personal relationship. The mentor is genuinely interested in the person they're mentoring, but it's more of a helping and teaching than it is a coaching. So what a coach really is, at some point or another, a coach may be all of those things, but primarily what the coach is trying to do, both Kathy and Aretha used the term clarity. A coach's role is to help someone be really clear, really clear about where they're trying to go and to some extent how to get there, but sometimes more importantly, who they have to be to get there. So what normally happens in a coaching engagement, we'll say, well, what do you want to work on? And almost always it's going to be, I want to solve ABC problem. I want to increase the retention rate of my families, or I want to increase the retention rate of key staff or attract key staff. But when you peel the onion back a few times through the coaching process, what you really discover is the what question rapidly becomes a who question. And that's where I think really good coaches earn their keep, because they're good at developing the relationship with the person they're coaching. Kathy had a couple of great examples. The relationship's there, the business problem, the presenting business problem is there, but as the coach keeps, digging down in a positive way, what they get down to is who do you want to be, have to be, need to be in order for you to hit your goal. And that's when coaching really takes off on its own.
And sometimes I know from the coachee standpoint, because I've been one, and I know the leadership when I've coached my team is been, a lot of times you want the answer. You just want the answer. It's so easy to give the answer too, as the leader. It's very easy to give the answer. And the ability to sort of step back and have the tools and the ability to help a person think through the issue, to earn the answer themselves as you giving it is, it comes back to the, parable of, teaching a person to fish as to give them benefit.
Right. Yeah. I think a judgment call too and this happens all the time in coaching. What they really need is a mix of all of these, right? The coach has to, with the client, jointly with the client, if it's a simple matter of, in order to get to the next step of their development, they need a particular answer. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know exactly your situation. Here's something similar. Here's what I think has worked well for others as the answer. Boom. You give them the answer if it's helpful. But the problem with a lot of coaches, and this includes me. I mean, when I was going through coaching school, they joked about trying to beat the consultant out of me. I wanted to go straight to consulting. Oh, I know how to do that. But the coach has to not get trapped in the coaching or in the consulting or teaching. They have to stay, the real value they have is below that surface. So the coach, if it serves the client best to throw the bone out there, there's nothing wrong with that. But then get back to who do they have to be and how does that drive their growth?
So let me ask you, for owners and operators out there, we have things that happen at any given time. Someone resigns the day before all your preschool starts, and you have like 3 teachers who leave, and next thing you know, you yourself, like Kathy in a previous call, had to actually jump in a classroom because she didn't have resignation as much as she had such growth, such huge, fast growth. You have CPS who walks in. You have like a landlord who announces, yeah, we decided we're not going to renew your lease. And you're like, what the heck am I going to do? Or, you have all different types of issues that crush your day or possibly even crush your week. And a lot of times with coaching, you set up a cadence. And, when you see it from being a coach, and there's typically you set up a cadence, but these kind of things happen. How do you tend to engage with the person? How do you tend to, manage through those fires, those emergencies?
Sure. As you're dialoguing with them, usually it'll start right at the beginning of a next coaching call, right? And, hi, how are you? How'd you enjoy the beach this weekend? Whatever it was. Okay. And then you say, what would you like to work on today? And you give them the freedom to say, I know we've been talking about my speaking skills, but right now I've got a teacher that just left and blah, 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 and the roof's falling in or whatever. I have to solve that problem before I can begin to pay attention to the higher value one. And the coach and the client together may make the decision that the very best thing for them on that day is to solve that pressing. I mean, you can't attain, world peace if you can't breathe. So if what they've got is a life or death or business life or death problem, you have to go there with them and help any way you can, help them brainstorm what they need to do to get that immediate response they need. So you really do go into whatever mix of these skills, including coaching, makes sense, get them stable, and then go back to your longer term development path.
Well, and what you're talking about too is a number of people who are successful operators proactively go on webinars, do these things. They have a little bit of a sense of what coaching is or mentoring or consulting is, and they've done it and they do some of it probably well. But it's oftentimes in our field, I know with my own centers, that I have staff, I have administrators, I have teachers that do not come from any kind of a coaching background. They're used to, very much of an instruction, one way. I tell people what to do and people do what I do, tell you what to do. And so, when it comes to engaging someone who may want to coach others, do you have any thoughts on that, on how to infuse coaching into a culture?
I do. If you'll go to slide 17 for me.
Okay.
Okay, and these slides, for those of you that who may wind up going through some of the coach training we'll be doing, these are sourced from that program. But if I'm looking at someone who wants to be a coach, one of the things I would talk about is, what does being a coach mean, and how might that be a shift from something you're already doing? So if you look at this chart, I mean, if I'm an old school business manager, okay, then I do a lot of telling, do a lot of directing, listen to me, directing, judging, all of these things that, let's say, old school, not so great, inspiring leaders do, or managers do. In an environment like we suggested with the Gallup survey, and in a coaching environment, the coaching skills move from telling to listening and asking great questions, and really being in dialogue with the person you're coaching, so that both of you are learning and go as you cycle through that question cycle. So that's a big shift. Hierarchical. If I'm your boss, well, okay, but the best coaching occurs when I don't sit above you, but I sit next to you, metaphorically. I mean, you're still my boss,
right?
But the best coaching bosses I ever had very seldom pulled rank on me. We were sitting there side by side trying to figure out our way through whatever issue or opportunity we were dealing with. So it's more of a teamwork and less of a boss subordinate. I care about the person. I mean, there's a genuine relationship back and forth, as opposed to, I'm the boss. I can't socialize with you. I can't do anything with you. I'm the boss. Did I mention I'm the boss? So there's a shifting of that dynamic from hierarchical to teaming.
Well,
And that's, if I were trying to evaluate someone to be a coach, I'd try to figure out, are they capable of making those shifts?
when you say making those shifts, is moving from that hierarchical to that sort of that linear approach where they can be at peer level, they can receive feedback the way they give it?
Absolutely. Is a coach, has a coach. So,
Right.
So even if you're trying to solve a business problem, you can both be pinging each other with insightful questions. And if you're both playing that game, and if it's okay for the subordinate to ask a pretty tough question to the boss, that's okay. And the boss has made it okay because they've made this shift.
Well, and I think I'm not exactly sure. I got a couple of my staff members who are on the call. I'm not sure if I'm the best there. I try to be, but I do know that I've gotten challenged by my team, and they will challenge me on a couple issues.
Sure.
And part of it, when I look at it, whether they believe it or not at the time, because sometimes I might be scratching my head or be, try not to be frustrated, but for most part, I'm really encouraged. I'm actually more thrilled than anything, because they're very thoughtful about how we're trying to move the business forward. And so when they're challenging me with things, that means they're passionately engaged. And to me, that's huge. So,
well, and if you respond that way, if you're patting them on the back and hitting in your face on a tough issue, then you get what you encourage, right? So you're going to get more of that good, balanced feedback the more you praise it and reward it.
Absolutely. let me ask you this, if there are there any truths about being coached or a coach working with a coach? Are there any kind of, I'd say standards that a coach should really be abiding by?
There's once you get into the skills training, there's all kinds of right ways and wrong ways to do things. So if you took this chart and dug down below into how would you actually execute that in the skills, there are certainly, we know from research and we know from watching good coaching and bad coaching what the differences are. So I mean, I think the person who wants to learn coaching has to be willing to be open with themselves and look at their behavior and I use the term, get out of your own skin, have an out of body experience and look at what you're doing in this situation so that you can say, ooh, gee, I really was kind of judgmental there, or, I'm not letting them talk. I'm just telling. So I'd say the critical thing there is being willing to really look at your own behavior and, challenge your own and then do the best you can to then do it the way research is telling us works best.
It's funny you say that because I did this for myself, but I also, when working with my staff, I just wrote this on the back of it because I would hang this at some of my directors' desks. And well, I forgot because I do add a smiley face to it. Okay.
Right.
But what I would just simply say is ask a question. And
Yes.
So it was just simply to say is ask a question. When my directors are working with staff, instead of just when they're popping their heads in, the staff, the teachers are, in other words, they're just telling them what to do. There's really a lack of engagement. But
sure.
You start asking questions more than telling. To me, that seems to be one of the truths that you can automatically do. It takes more time and investment.
It does. It does. Well, and sometimes the direct question is the right one to ask. But in general, that's where the dichotomy between the coach seeing themselves as a problem solver versus seeing themselves as a people developer. Yeah. Because problem solvers, it's an interrogation. Well, what this and then, they're trying to solve the puzzle. Okay, that's a different set of questions than helping the other person see what in their view is hiding the answer to the puzzle from them. That's who they are, not what's the next right thing to do. And the coach, as they get more into, let's really understand who you are and how you need to grow, then you get out of those leading questions. Well, don't you mean you really want to do this? No, I didn't. Wasn't I? And we all do that. We all ask questions that are really directions with a question mark at the end.
Well, and that leads me to, let me ask you one last question. It's sort of a two-part, but we heard both Aretha as well as Kathy say, and I know I've said it before, and you've probably experienced that leadership can be lonely.
Absolutely.
Leadership can be a challenging thing because you oftentimes don't have peers. It was our poll question up front. Some people have that, other people don't have that. Also, thinking about dealing with the loneliness, but also about accountability and having an accountability person to help you with accountability. I am seeding that a little bit. I do believe coaching has a lot to do with accountability. What are your thoughts on that, Jim?
I mean, a coach, one of the key roles that a coach plays is to help the client or the coachee hold themselves accountable to whatever goal they set, right? So it's, I may make some notes in a call that said, okay, and then usually as you wrap up a call, you're kind of writing down okay, where are we going? What are our to-dos? What are our accountabilities? Okay, so I may pull out my list from the last time, but it's not them satisfying me, it's them satisfying themselves. How well did they do against that list of actions and outcomes they wanted to achieve? So it's how you ask the accountability question, not whether you do. The two of you have to, or the coaching won't go anywhere.
Wow, and I'm really appreciative of that, and actually I lied to you because I do have one more question.
I'm here until you tell me to go away.
No, no, no. You know, Kathy mentioned she changed coaches. I know Brian, he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy.
Mhm.
But you know, you'll change coaches. And I know that I had 3 different coaches before I found you as a coach too. People change coaches. And is in your mind of being a coach, is there anything wrong with that?
Absolutely not. I mean, absolutely not. I mean, when we get, usually most coaching engagements start with a specific goal in mind. And when you get to the end of that, you know, you tend to think, well, okay, I'm done. But I always try to leave the last session or the last couple of the sessions to say, okay, you've experienced coaching. What other coaches do you need in your life? Okay. And in those cases, it may be they may need some subject matter expertise, which might be a mentor more than a coach, or they may want somebody who they can really open up with on where am I going with my life. That might be a more of a true coach. But you do try to help them find a family of coaches within their group, friends, family, organization, whatever, that can help them with that. So they should be out actively searching for the coaching they need on whatever is important to them.
Well, great. Well, Jim, I want to thank you a great deal for joining us today. It's been great to have Aretha, to have Kathy, and to have you on here. I wanted to say to our audience, you know, we have had at IC360, you know, oftentimes people sometimes say, you know, it's great. You guys are actually the ones who are the watch. You guys are the ones who actually do the heavy lifting when we have received some coaching. But we are interested in having coaching. We're interested in being mentored. We're interested in learning more onto how to become a coach. So IC360 has partnered with Jim, with others, and what we're doing is we are going to be implementing our own executive coaching. And I think it's an important program. It is coming this coming late fall, early winter of 2020 or 2021. And we'll be rolling it out. What we think is the big difference is there's some wonderful coaches out there. I can't say enough about them. A lot of them have great techniques for growing the enrollment in your centers or locking down the staff you have or dealing with some of those issues. What we've done is I've teamed with Jim and others. We already have a bench who are interested of 10 owner operators who've been very successful. We're in the process of becoming certified coaches. And what we think is going to be different about this program and how it's going to be helpful to the community out there is not only are these individuals highly successful owner operators of ECE and childcare, Montessori schools and the like, but they all will go through a certification and truly become a certified coach. It's also going to be a bespoke program. So the difference about it is that we're not going to be using anything that is sort of canned, anything which is these are the best tips, tricks, all those things that lead into sort of consulting. This is going to be really wrapped around the individuals. This is true executive coaching. Like when I went through and became my own executive coach, I did this so I had an opportunity to really wrap my coaching around the coachee that I worked with. It also is, when we say no agenda and not being pre-planned, is sort of what I was just speaking of. There is not a destined path to say this is the formula as much as it's to dig deep. There's oftentimes you'll be with groups like, Entrepreneur Organization, EO, or Vistage or the like, who are CEO groups, as well as coaching groups in the industry or outside. What we're looking for is really sort of what I call clean slate conversations, where you would discover one of or a couple of the different coaches that we work with and really find the best fit for you, and then get a real deep connection with that individual. It is going to be a one-on-one dedicated relationship. It is going to also include mentoring because of their experience with, growth, culture, getting that connection, maybe operations is really important. And there will also be an opportunity to have a peer group become part of it. So you will have not only the one-on-one coaching, but you will have also access to a peer group. The other thing is we're really believing is in unlimited access throughout the year. So they're one-year coaching programs, but the objective is to have a full open door, that it's not just limited to a number of sessions. Yeah, is there a number of sessions that it's scheduled for throughout a year? Yeah, and it's a bunch. But oftentimes what we find is that someone doesn't use all the coaching to the highest degree that they could. So if they need to pick up the phone and call, it's always going to be sort of an open door. So I just want to let you know that there is more to come. We've already exceeded our time, but this is a program that we've had a lot of requests for, so expect more to come. I want to thank everybody, thank my guests, obviously again, Aretha, Kathy, and Jim, as well as all of you for attending. Thank you all for those of you who are members of Inspire Care 360, and thank everybody else for attending. We look forward to seeing you very soon. Take care and have a wonderful day.